Hello folks, it is week 10 and we are beginning the research portion of our literary journalism exploration. As you know, literary journalism is a mix of storytelling, which you've been practicing in your personal essay, and it is also reportage. It is finding good sources through your interviews, observations, and traditional researching. You'll need to have several real sources, and you'll need to make sure that they're reliable and trustworthy. You've been through some of these sorts of exercises before, finding good information through a library and so on. But I want to go over some tips and tools for evaluating sources, because one of the options that you have to work with in your literary journalism approach is the Mythbusters. As you know, there are many myths out there that people are pursuing in whether it has to do with the pandemic or the vaccinations or maybe political situations. The events of January 6th certainly illustrate how misinformation can be put to perhaps not such positive use. So there's a lot out there that confuses and abuses people's sense of the real world. So with that in mind, let's do some actual research and look at how we gather information and whether or not we should trust it. So let's begin with here with our overview of the week. We're sorting fact from fiction. You're going to review some great essay writing, and you're going to choose your approach. We're going to do a different thing this week. We're going to do a discussion. I know they're both discussion tools, but we're going to use a discussion for one aspect of our class this week and a traditional blog reflection. The reason I chose to do two means of communication with your classmates is because I think you can give each other some really great feedback and support and expand your thinking about your project. So this is a good way to share ideas. So let me show you what I've got going on here. All right, your readings. Feature journalism is slightly different from, it's the same thing but different. Okay, I'll explain in a minute. From immersion journalism. So this article can help you out in terms of thinking about ways to approach feature journalism. This is your prompt and overview. It gives you many options for ways in which to approach your literary journalism assignment. I'd like you to take a look at this. Why do people believe in conspiracy theories? It's just interesting science behind the wackadoodle behaviors that we're all prone to. We all have confirmation biases. We all have our own belief systems that we can either affirm or support through our worldview and so on. It's kind of an interesting read. Finding and evaluating sources. You probably know about the CRAP test. This is currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. This link will take you to the C&M Library's review of that particular way of evaluating sources. This is a link to Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a way to find more reputable sources using a Google tool, and this video is really pretty useful. It's about how to use Google Scholar to the best advantage. I'm sharing this with you not because I don't want you to use the C&M databases, because they are fabulous, but Google Scholar is a tool that you will have outside of college, and if you go on it to life and you want to find good information, that's a really great place to go, and it's a good skill to have moving forward. And this gives you another video regarding Google's advanced search tool. Again, another skill that is useful to you in college and beyond. Fact-checking sites. This is fascinating because we can indeed fact-check the information we receive. There's a lot of whatnot that goes around on social media, and some of it looks like it's legit, but it may not be. Again, I recall events of January 6th or other conspiracy theories that circulate like mad right now, and people believe things that if you step back and maybe get a cold splash of water in the face, you'd say, well, what? That can't be. But people believe a lot of things. And so how do you know? Well, this is a collection of fact-checking sites that you can go to. Snopes, PolitiFact are among them. I forget which one is which, but they have, there's one that has a liar, liar, pants on fire scale. It has this, is it true? Sort of true? Kind of true? Mostly a lie? Liar, liar, pants on fire scale. It's pretty entertaining, but you can kind of fact check using those tools. This I actually love is the Advantes Media Bias Chart. And while we are all subject to our own biases, we can kind of see how they play out on this, how news outlets play out on this news bias chart. There is an interactive version and there's the static version. This is the static version. And you'll see that it's broken up into chunks. The top chunk is in green, which reflects original fact reporting and mostly fact reporting with more analysis. It's pretty reputable in this zone. And in the middle, it's neutral. It's just fact reporting. And that's what you want in straight news, just fact reporting. And so there's some really great sources up here that you can pull from. Even if they might lean a little to the left or right, that's okay. They're still pretty reliable. If we go over here, we see most extreme left. If we go over here, we see most extreme right, meaning very liberal leaning, very conservative leaning. Okay, as we go down the pyramid, we get into a little iffier territory down here. It's mostly analysis or variation of reliability, opinion, or high variation of reliability. So it's getting a little fuzzier as we go down this way, and it gets more and more partisan as we go in these directions. We get down here, and we're getting into dangerous territory. It's selective. That's something to keep in mind. We can have the same facts presented by different media sources, but presented in slightly different ways. And the full picture might be, cherry-picked. Just this bit of information, it may be factual, but out of context, it has a different meaning to the reader. So in these zones, we get very selective presentations of facts, mostly, but maybe because they're cherry-picked, they can be presented in a misleading or biased way. And then you get down here and you get into, woohoo, what's going on? Crazy land. And we do not have QAnon down here, but we probably should. You get the idea. So I find this useful. Of course, people put these things together, and all humans have biases. But if you go to this website, they explain their rationale and they give ratings. So if you use the interactive version of this particular source, you can click on one of the outlets, and it will give you a rate of reliability and a scoring regarding its bias. And they have a whole matrix of how they determine their evaluation. You can agree or disagree. I'm just saying this is one way to approach or at least acknowledge that maybe you get a great article from, say, Slate, and you think, this is awesome, this is so helpful, but you're going to have to keep in mind that Slate is somewhere over here, slightly leans a little bit on the left side, and we're in the more opinion than it's more analysis. It's got a little more of a spin on it. Same thing if we go over here to Fox News or to the New York Post or whatever, there's going to be more conservative leaning. If you want just the facts, try to stay up here. Even if I would say the Atlantic is still pretty reliable, even though it skews just a teensy bit on the left. Same thing over here with Wall Street Journal, right? You can see how this plays. Alrighty, let's go back to our readings and resources. So I really do encourage you to take a look at all of these tools. I think they will make your life more interesting. You've got two readings this week. The first one is the one we're going to be spending a lot of time on with your blog. This is My Month with Chemtrail Conspiracy Theorists. It was published in The Guardian some years ago, but it is an example of a cross between immersion journalism and, because it's a month with, this person dove into time with people who believe conspiracy theories. But it's also kind of a feature journalism piece in that it's not just the journalist's story. It's not just her journey through this experience. She interviews and puts together vignettes and stories from her sources. So you have storytelling, but it's not in a linear Freytag pyramid sort of way. So it's an interesting mix. It's also an example of the Mythbusters approach to the assignment. So if you're interested in that kind of approach, that's cool. But also, I want you to notice, how does she balance? As a reporter, you're supposed to take a neutral stance. Is she balanced? Is she fair? Does she make these people out to be clowns, or does she treat them with respect? How does this work? How does she characterize these people? Even though she calls them conspiracy theorists, how does she characterize them in the piece? So I want you to take a deep dive into that. It's a really great read. Optional but awesome. This is a really great piece. To Hell and Back Again, A Day with Marie Kondo, the Marie Kondo Method. This is a stay-at-home immersion journalism piece. It is in a contrast in a way in terms of style, because it is more of a story from the point of view of the journalist, the reporter. The writer is going on this journey and she takes you with her. It is all immersion, all experiential. I shouldn't say all, because there are references to external sources, but it's a slightly different approach. So in contrast, those two are actually an interesting pairing. So I really encourage you to read this one. And it is funny, it's raunchy, it's insightful. There's a couple of F-bombs, just to give you that heads up. I think you might enjoy it though. So as I said, we're going to do a discussion and a reflection. I know they're the same tool, but the discussion is going to be you exploring your topic and your possible resources, and the reflection is about Dunn's piece. Be sure you're keeping track of your sources and your citations and so on. You do have to let us know where the information comes from, even if it's from your own observations or interviews. And you need to be able to find that information in the future. You can use annotation tools like Scribble or Hypothesis. If you want to annotate online, you can print out. You can create a Google Doc and keep all your sources in one place. You can use Google Docs to highlight and annotate your sources, but keep track of them. Do all the things you learned in your 1110 and 1120 classes about keeping track of your sources, annotating, and making sure you use the most useful material, but also cover your butt. You do not want to plagiarize. You want to make sure that you identify where information comes from, even when you're paraphrasing. Alrighty. This is a short video about our information bubbles and our confirmation biases. And these are things we should be aware of in our own lives, because we are all human beings and we all have our own biases. But the sad thing is, the internet, in all its glory, and by internet I'm really referring to like Google and Facebook and other social media sites, it gives us more of what we want. If you like candy, you'll get more candy. And that's kind of a problem. And that is how we can have a conversation with our family members we haven't seen for a while over Thanksgiving dinner, and you wonder, how did weird Uncle Al come up with that? And he says, what, you don't read the news? And you say, well, I read the news. Well, don't you? And it's just, different worldviews. How is that possible? Well, this video gives you a short explanation, but if you go to the original, Pariser gave a TED talk about 10 years ago. He was a canary in the coal mine at the time, saying, this is how these algorithmic systems work, and how you keep getting more of what you like, so that your news and your information bubble gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and you don't have any control over it unless you make conscious choices to go outside of your bubble. So take a look at that. It's useful. Alrighty. This is my lecture notes. Please take a look. I'm kind of giving you a general overview now, but please take a look about the differences between immersion and feature journalism, and about reliability of sources. Some of this stuff we've just talked about. More information about Google Scholar and advanced search and so on in here. So please take a look at my notes. All right, your discussion is about you and your choices, about what you're going to pursue for your literary journalism piece. You're going to have a draft due in week 12. This is week 10, so we're going to get this thing rolling. So make sure you've gone over the assignments, prompts. Let us know the approach you plan to take and why this approach interests you. And preview the story part of it that you want to tell. Then you're going to inform that story with resources, right? Storytelling and reportage, both. What sources will you plan to consult? If you have some sources already, what are they? How do you know they're reliable? What fact-checking tools are you going to employ? And so on. And then ask for suggestions, ask for feedback. And in your responses, give suggestions and feedback. Really respond. Use this as kind of, a support group for each other. And I mean that sincerely. Help each other out. Give each other ideas, and think of, not just being in your partner's shoes, your colleague's shoes as a reporter, but think, offer feedback as a reader. What would you be curious about as a reader? What would you want to see as a reader? And that kind of feedback can be really useful. So be kind and helpful. All right, your blog this week is based on the chemtrail article and the conspiracy theorist thing, and I'd like to know your first reactions. In how does Dunn distinguish fact from fiction, and how does she fact check the conspiracy theorists? How does this work? How does this dynamic work as a Mythbuster example? And how do you describe her tone and attitude regarding the subject? How does she characterize the people she interviews? And so on. And does she maintain objectivity? I don't know the answer to these questions. I think maybe you'll have to do some diving in and think about, go for it. Really put some thought into this. Answer all of the questions as you know. Introduce, present, develop. It's a mini essay, but it's your blog, right? Make sure it has beginning, middle, and end. Proofread. Needs to be about 400 words. You know the drill. And then respond. And respond to 2 classmates, as you know. And as you do, please try to think of open-ended questions. Try to continue the conversation. If you get a response to one of your responses, consider that like a gold star or something. That's like you've won the day. So that's what you're shooting for. Keep the conversation going if you can. So as you know, you're going to have a draft due in week 12. We're going to have a final draft in week 13. We're going to be exploring more and more of what this means to be a storyteller and a reporter at the same time, and how to ethically cite your sources. We'll talk about that a little bit more about the next week. You can use hyperlinks and signal phrases and all this kind of stuff. But I really encourage you to continue reading sample essays, not just those by the pros, and I've linked several in the prompt from pros, but also from students. So I've given you some student samples in the prompt from previous semesters. You can see what they did, how they approached it, what worked, what didn't work. You might find some of that pretty inspirational. So I hope you enjoy this week, and holler if I can help. I'm happy to talk with any of you individually. The office hours are officially at 10 o'clock on Thursday, but that's just, what I have to put on the books. If you want to meet one-on-one any old time, I should say any old time because, I do sleep, but let me know. Teachers are weird people. You do a little happy dance if you show up for any kind of conversation, whether it's informal office hours or just a private Zoom session. I'm down, so just reach out anytime, okay? I don't mean to sound desperate. Maybe I do, maybe a little desperate, but I don't mean to. Okay, have a great week. I look forward to reading your writing. By the way, I am going a little slowly reading your personal essays. I usually read them twice before I comment, so be patient, and I will be with you very shortly. Take care. Bye-bye.